Okay. Good morning, Sarah Abigail. This Baum. A Baum is a tree.
Yeah.
The Torah is also a tree. The Torah is also a tree of life.
Like the song.
Oh, there's a song?
Yeah.
Good.
It's a conservative
Good
song
idea
now.
for a song.
Huh?
Good idea for a song.
Yeah. It's cute. It's like a Torah talk kind of song, you know, like a
Uh-huh.
talk. Cute.
I want to be a Torah taught. Instead, I became a Torah teacher. Okay. If we succeed in this class, we will have achieved the Torah taught. The Torah will be taught. Okay, so we learning yesterday that an ordinary person, an ordinary Yosef or Hannah is capable of controlling themselves, even though the temptations in the heart are very strong and the voices are saying, go on, don't be a nerd. Do it. Everybody else does it. You could do it too. The person who, the very simple person, ordinary person can stand up against the Yetzer Hara, like David stands up against Goliath and said, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm not going to do what you're saying. And I wish you would leave me alone. Okay, that is the role of the Beinoni from top to bottom. You can have highly achieved Torah scholars who are on that level, and very simple people who never went to any yeshiva on that level. There are stories and talks and tales of the young people who were called Kantonistin. This was an evil plot of the Tsar in the 19th century to kidnap children when they were 7, 6, 5, 7, in the earliest years. Kidnap them and put them in an army school, and they had to be there for the next 25 years, by which time it would have been too late for them to learn in any significant manner. And they suffered. They beat them, and very often they killed them from the beatings that they received. And they held on to the little bit of Yiddishkeit that they knew or remembered, which was very, very little. After all, when you're 35 years old, what do you remember from when you were 6? Prayers. Maybe you know you're Jewish. And yet this person has the ability, the free choice, and the ability to control his actions and not do something that's forbidden. Good morning, Liba. My heart. It says in the Talmud, Rachamana Liba boy. That means the Eibishter wants Liba, a good heart. Rachamana, that means the merciful one. Liba boy, the merciful one wants Liba. That's you. And there's a girl who's all heart.
I hope I can live up to that.
What?
I said, I hope I can live up to that.
Well, okay, it's a good way to start your day. A guy said to me the other day, listen to me. He said, listen to me. He was very excited. He said, somebody asked the Rebbe Rashab, the 5th Rebbe, Sholem Ber. I can't, he said to him, what do? I cannot do meditation like I'm supposed to do, like you always say, a person has to meditate before he davens. I can't do it. So the Rebbe said to him, what do you think meditation is? Do you think you have to take a Maimer Hasidus and learn it for an hour, 2 hours before you daven? No, you have to think about 3 things. That's all. You have to think about what you should be, what you could be and what you are. Take a minute, think about those three things, you'll have what to daven with. I repeated that to a friend. He said, what's the difference? What does that mean? So I said, well, I don't know, but I'll suggest. Think about what you should be. Well, that's the minimum. The minimum requirement, what you should be. What you could be, that's the maximum, what you could be. And what you are, that's what you're davening with. Yes, Sarah.
I feel like I understood it the other way, like the opposite, like, but like in another sense of like what you should be is in like what other people want you to be, what you could be, like what you want to be for you, and what you are, like where you're at now.
But the bottom, the third one is the third one. What you are, that's what you're davening with.
Yeah.
To be what you could be all, that's what the Marines say, be all you could be. Okay, so that's the Beinoni. He is struggling hard to be all that he could be, but he cannot be a tzaddik. To be a tzaddik, we're going to learn, is a gift from Hashem. It's a gift. Not everybody gets a gift. It's not something you can work hard and say, okay, now I want a gift. It's not up to you. You know, a person can go to school and do very, very well in their studies. Say, okay, Dad, I want a Lexus. Say, I'm sorry, I'm not giving you a Lexus.
Give me an Alexa.
I'll give you a watch. I'll give you a necklace. I'm not giving you a Lexus. What did you say, Malka?
I said my parents gave me an Alexa.
What's
little,
that?
The little dot we used to say like, Alexa, do this, Alexa, do that. And it can like set alarms for you, turn on and off lights.
Oh, it's a virtual companion,
Sort of.
sort of. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the whole smart home thing.
really? What's that?
Just kind of how you can have your whole house be automated, which is a great concept, but also horrible for Shabbat. So, you know, there's
Right.
that. She's my Shabbos alarm too.
Good morning, Chava. Okay, we're on page 213. However, where it says 27 Tabus, however, when that's the Beinoni. The Beinoni is in control of what he does. He's responsible and he's in control. The tzaddik is on a different level because the tzaddik controls this. The heart of the tzaddik is made over. The heart of the tzaddik has been committed to Hashem and there's no room in there for any of this conflict. So that's what he says. Masha'en Kain is very different with a davar hamasur l'leiv, something that's in the heart. You can control what you do. You can't control what's in your heart. Tahainu shehei hara ma'us, and what does he mean? He means that something that's against the will of Hashem should be totally loathsome, disgusting. Mamish, and hate, something hateful, hated. Because a person can work on himself and say, I don't want to have ice cream. It's not good for me. It's not good for my diet. It's not good for my Yiddishkeit. It's good. I'm just a Baal Taiba. I'm just like any other creature that likes what it likes and wants what it wants. So he works on himself. He's not going to have ice cream. And then he goes to a wedding and there's an ice cream table. And he looks at it and he struggles not to take it. Tzaddik doesn't have that struggle. I told you these stories. There's a couple of stories like this where try to embarrass a tzaddik by having their daughter or their wife like a temptress in front of the tzaddik. Rabbi Akiva happened to Rabbi Akiva, it happened to the Tzemach Tzedek, and their response was similar. Rabbi Akiva, the story about him is he began to cry. That never happened to such a beautiful woman before. That she comes to seduce somebody and he just starts crying. Or in the case of Tzemach Tzedek, he vomited. It was literally nauseous. So that's something that's called Masr Lalev. That's in your heart. Your heart doesn't go there, just doesn't go there. Doesn't want to go there. There's not even a hint that maybe it could go there. Interesting, but I don't go there. No, it's not interesting at all. It's disgusting. It's putrid. It's like a dog drops something on the street right in front of you. Are you going to be interested to look at it? It's loathsome. Okay, but tachlis asina, with a total hatred. That's what David HaMelech says. Sinasa esam, but tachlis asina. I hated them with a total hatred. Libi cholo b'kirbi. My heart is empty within me. Meaning that something from the other side, that's not the side of holiness, is something that's totally hated in the heart of Hashem, and the left side of the heart is not filled with the Yetzer Hara. Not the Yetzer Hara ran for hiding and he's going to come back. It's empty. It's been killed. Or else it's a level of tzaddik that we learned in chapter 10, that the person hates evil, but not absolutely entirely. There's like this 1/2 of 1% of the Yetzer Hara that's left. 1/2 of 1% really isn't significant. It's like a drop of water in the ocean. It's nothing. So it's totally inactive. But since it's there, you can't say that he's a complete tzaddik, that he's a perfect tzaddik. He's not complete or perfect. The imperfection in him has no practical influence on his life. None. Zero. No influence. But he's not a perfect tzaddik. So that's what he said. That's what he says here in the third line from the bottom. Sholei b'tachlis hasina. He hates the Yetzer Hara, but you can't say he hates it with 100% hatred. That is the level of what's we call the tzaddik gomer, the complete tzaddik, the total tzaddik. But those are the ones that we say are very few. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, it says in the Medrash, people like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who's big days coming up in a week and a half, Lag BaOmer. One in a generation. There's no slip up. There's no moment when they're not on the mark, when they're not serving Hashem. Again, a sentence that's familiar to you by now about Rabbi Yisroel of Rizhin, the holy Rizhin the Rebbe. The family name, I think, was Friedman. It says he didn't blink an eyelash. It wasn't part of his service of Hashem. It wasn't an activity dedicated to Hashem, just blinking. Okay, so anything against the will of Hashem is totally hated by this person with an absolute hatred. Okay, now continuing. Second Hebrew lines from the bottom, page 213. 213. Hine. The only way that a person can be on this level in the truest way, you only can be there when you have this constant burning love in your heart. Maybe you have that. That would be a privilege and honor to teach any of you who have this constant burning love of Hashem in your heart that never, ever goes out. That's Rabbah on page 1 of the Tanya. He said, I'm a Beinani. This is his colleague, Abaya, said, how can you be a Beinani? Every single second of your life is devoted with you're not just going through the motions. You really mean it. The love of Hashem is burning in your heart. It's intense. It's called not love like powerful love. That's called Aza. Like Gaza in the southwest of Israel, the area called Gaza. That's from the word Aza, which means very powerful, very strong. So this is a very strong love. Then after that is a great love, Abba Rabba, a great and overwhelming love. And then beyond that, we learned about Abba B'tainugim. Tainug, the word oinug means delight. Shabbos is called oinug Shabbos. Love of delight, meaning your whole delight in life is just to be connected with Hashem. Your whole, what is that? We learned that in chapter 12, that this is a person whose sole pleasure and delight in life is knowing about God and godly things. That's where he's holding the whole time. So he said, Rabbi, how could you think you're a Beinoni when you're obviously this higher level? So he says, yeah, but if I would stop learning, and you're learning the whole time, you don't stop. He says, but if I stopped, then maybe the Yetzer Hara would come back. Maybe I'm a Beinoni. I think I'm a Beinoni. I can think I'm a Beinoni. The only reason I have this level of love, like a tzaddik, is because I don't stop. A Beinoni can achieve this level, but then he stops and it goes away. I'm not stopping, because if I stop, then it'll go away, and I will be like a Rasha. That's what it says in the Mishnah. A person should always be, in his own eyes, like a Rasha. That's the Beinoni. He's not a Rasha. He's like a Rasha. And he concludes on this page 213. Get this. This is Me'ein Olam Haba. This is like the world to come. In other words, a person in this life here, in Postville, Iowa, can experience the world to come, Gan Eden, here on earth, if it's a gift from Hashem. And if it's not a gift from Hashem, then you have to work for it, and you can still experience it, like when you daven, when you say Kriya Shema. And here's a challenge. How about Kriya Shema Alamita before you go to bed? I don't know about the rest of you, but when I say Kriya Shema before bed, I'm just struggling to stay awake. But that's not the way it's supposed to be. Don't learn from me. You know the old story? Don't imitate me. Listen to what I'm telling you and don't be like me. So the Rebbe said, well, what's going to be with your children? He says, well, I'm instructing my children what to do. He says, so you know what's going to be is your children will be like you, and they'll instruct their children not to be like them. The children, if you want your children to be good, you have to be good. If you want them to work at it, you have to work at it. Right, Tova? Yep. Yeah. All right, Tova, you're a bright light in this class from day one. Okay, page 214. This is chapter 14. Now we've gone, the Rabbi, what's his name, Gordon used the word segue. I never heard that word before he said it.
Rabbi Gordon's so good.
Yeah, he's very good. He's very good. Segue. The last time I saw him was at the Kinnis HaShluchim. We were going through security for the big gathering. And I saw him, I went over to him, I said, you know, I'm learning Tanya with you every day, learning Rambam with you every day. You know what he said?
What?
He said, I'm honored.
I listen to his Tanya share every day.
Oh, yeah?
He always talks about the 7-layer cake.
About the what?
He's like, you love 7-layer cake. You don't love Hashem. Like he always says 7-layer cake. That's like his.
A 7-layer
That's like
cake.
his biggest.
Yeah, that's what they called it in New Jersey. When I was a kid in New Jersey. Al Zeh, page 214, but Al Zeh Amru Rabbi Seinu. This is concerning this, our sages said, Oilamacha tira b'chayecha. A person is on this level of loving Hashem so with this constant, overwhelming love. It's, what do you think it's going to be like in Gan Eden? You think it's going to be boring? You won't know what to do. Maybe you'll go bowling, go out for pizza. What are you going to do in Gan Eden? In Gan Eden, it says one moment in Gan Eden is worth more than all the pleasures this whole world has to offer you. You're not going to want anything else. You know, there's stories of tzaddikim who promised that they're not, when they leave this world, they are not going to go into Gan Eden. They're not going to go into Gan Eden. They're going to wait outside and they're going to stir him and tell the Eibishter he has to send Mashiach now. And they're not going to go into Gan Eden until he does. And what happened to them? They come up to the gates of Gan Eden, and they say, we're not going in. They say, well, okay, they just open the door a little bit, and he hears that the Rebbe is saying a mimer, and he jumps in, and it's finished, it's all over. He doesn't want to miss the mimer.
I have a question about that.
Just a minute, I hold your question for just a minute. So when I was learning a mimer once, when I was a boy before I got married, and there was a certain pasuk, a verse that's quoted in the mimer, and I looked it up, and it's different. The Rebbe misquoted the verse. So I went to Rabbi Shmuel Lu in London. I told him, what's going on here? He says, yeah, I've heard that. And when they pointed it out to the Rebbe, he says, that's funny. The way I said it, that's where they say it in Gan Eden.
Whoa.
In other words, he heard the mimer up there, and he was just giving it over. Yes, question.
So you said the rabbi said they would not go to Gan Eden until Mashiach came,
Yeah,
but when Mashiach comes, there's Theatem 18. So what do you mean?
there's what?
Theatem 18, like they would come back to this world.
Correct.
End up going to Gan Eden.
What?
So they wouldn't end up going to Gan Eden anyways.
Well, what happened? What goes to Gan Eden is the neshama goes to Gan Eden. The goof stays down here. Tchias Amesim is the neshama comes back to the goof.
Yeah, but if they never go into Gan Eden until Mashiach comes, then they're not going into Gan Eden at all. Because when Mashiach comes, then they're just coming back here.
Yeah, but the only one so far that we could say that he fulfilled that is the Rebbe, because the Rebbe did something extraordinary. He made a condition. When you make a condition, I'm not going to do something unless, yeah. And you say, unless it happens, I'm not going to do it. So you can go to a sage and say, I think I made a mistake by making this condition. And, like saying, I'm never going to buy a house unless I get married. And I'm not married, so I'm not going to buy a house. But now I got married, I need to buy a house. But I made a vow, I'm not going to buy a house. So you go to a sage and you say, if I had known, I wouldn't have made the vow. And the sage says, okay, you made a mistake. Don't do it again. Now you can go buy a house. However, if you make a vow conditional upon a multitude of people, you can't get them to forgive your vow because there's so many of them. The Rebbe made this vow in public on the condition of many people.
I don't think you understood my question. They said that they wouldn't go to Gan Eden unless Mashiach came. Or when Mashiach comes, they're anyways not going to go to Gan Eden.
They're not going to go. They already went.
But they said that they wouldn't go until Mashiach.
Yeah, but then they got fooled. One by one, they all got fooled. They gave them a peep of what's going on in Gan Eden, and they jumped in.
Let's say hypothetically, they didn't get fooled.
Well, that's hypothetical.
But then they would never go to Gan Eden.
They might never make it. That's right. So they haven't. So here's what he says, that a person's on this level of Abba, Batainugim, love of delights, he experiences what Gan Eden is like a little bit when he's still alive. You got that? Did you hear me? So if a person has this level of love, that's what you have in Gan Eden. That's what it says in the Mishnah, in Ethics of the Fathers. That 1 minute of Gan Eden is worth more than all of the pleasure and delights that the world could possibly offer you. And then it goes on to say, but 1 minute of tshuva and good deeds in this world is worth more than everything that Gan Eden can give you. So you're better off staying here if you do tshuva. Okay. And going on. Page 214. This refers to righteous people like Avram Avinu, Moshe Rabbeinu, Ein Kol Adam Zoichel Lezeh, not everybody merits such a revelation. Ki zehu ke'ein kibul schar, it's like receiving a reward from heaven. And he writes here in the notes, in the not in the bold type, a reward can only be received, you can't take it. You can't go and say, you have to give me a reward for everything, all the good things I did. No, you don't. It's a gift, and it's arbitrary. It's up to Hashem if he gives it. This level of tzaddikim are called priests, and this is a gift that Hashem gives to the kohanim. Page 215. Now we're going back to chapter 1. We had a question on chapter 1. We know that everybody has free choice. Free choice is never taken away. People were at the Red Sea, they saw the Red Sea split, and they still came back shortly afterwards and didn't believe that Hashem could take them into Eretz Yisrael. So free choice is never taken away from a person, no matter what. And that's a crucial reality that we have to acknowledge. Hashem doesn't want angels for his Torah. He doesn't need angels who only listen to him. He doesn't want robots. He wants people who could choose to do the opposite and instead choose to do what he is asking us to do. So therefore, Job, Iyar in Hebrew, Iyar says, Rabbeinu Shalom, you created tzaddikim, you created Rishoyim, and we had a question on page 1 of the Tanya. Where's the free choice? If the Eibishter made me a tzaddik, so then I'm a tzaddik. And if he made me a rasha, I'm a rasha. And this is the argument of the deviance. A person who's a deviant person, that he goes against the laws of mankind, and he does weird, forbidden things, forbidden things, and you say, how can you do such terrible things? He says, it's not my fault. Hashem made me this way. He doesn't want to take personal responsibility. Khan, are you with me? Yeah. He doesn't take responsibility. He says, Hashem made me. If it was bad, Hashem wouldn't make me this way. Hashem is good, right? Hashem, everything Hashem does is good, right? And he made me this way. So it's not bad. Don't tell me it's bad. I'm allowed to be a kleptomaniac. I'm allowed to be a pyromaniac. I'm allowed to be any other kind of maniac, because that's how Hashem made me. No. That's not what Job means when he says you made tzaddikim. It means, and here's the explanation. Here, Liba, Rivka, read this. We can now understand, read it loud so everybody hears.
We can now understand.
Louder.
We can now understand Iyar's statement as a reference to those souls created with the capacity of attaining the rank of a tzaddik.
Underline that, with the capacity. He created souls that could become tzaddikim. Didn't make them tzaddikim. So this is the question: is a tzaddik born a tzaddik, or does he become a tzaddik? Again, I told you this story. Mendel Baumgarten, father of the Baumgartens that we know. Brother-in-law of Rabbi Groner. Okay, when he was a bacher, he went to a wedding, and he came back from the wedding, and he was in 770, and the Rebbe was there. Maybe the Rebbe was going home. It was late at night. And the Rebbe said to him, were you at the wedding? He said, yes. He said, was it a nice wedding? Yes. Was Lebedik? Yes. Did they sit down for a brang afterwards? It used to be like this at a wedding. That after the dancing was over and all the guests had left and they finished Shabbat brachas and the caterers were cleaning up, the bochum would sit down for bring. So he said, did the Bochum verbring afterwards? Said, yes. What? Said the Rebbe, what did they verbring about? He said, they verbring about the question, is a tzaddik born a tzaddik or does he become a tzaddik?
Born.
And the Rebbe said, and what did you say? He said, I said he's born a tzaddik. And the Rebbe smiled and went into his room. And I heard that story from him. Yes, Tova.
So just now when we were reading, you said.
What?
Just now when we were reading this, you said back in chapter 1, and I was thinking about how Tanya is like the written Torah of Chassidus. So I'm wondering if like everything in Chassidus, like all of my Marim, all of Sichais, everything is like based in Tanya, right? Like you're reading a mimer about something completely not related to this, and it sounds like the same as Tanya. So is that like the whole
Because
thing?
all the Maimorim are just going deeper and bringing out more and more details of, all the details that are contained. The Tanya is like a klal, like in the Torah. 5 books of the Torah have a certain number of letters, 600,000 letters. But the whole Talmud is rooted in the Torah and those letters. And the Midrashim. Go back to chapter 4 now. Let's look at chapter 4. You see, this is the extraordinary thing about the Tanya. They said that the colleagues of the Alter Rebbe said, how did he take such a big God and put him in such a little book? And that's here you go.
Which
On
part
page
of-
83, look back on page 83. Although the Eibishter is Ein Sof infinite, and his greatness can never be fathomed, and no thought can comprehend him whatsoever. And similarly, his will and his wisdom are unfathomable, and there's no searching his understanding. And concerning this, it says, when you behold the greatness of Hashem, or he translates it here, when you will search to understand Hashem, and he goes, will you find, in other words, you're not able to, my thoughts are not like your thoughts. And then it says, where you find, here, page 184 at the top, where you find the greatness of Hashem, where you perceive the greatness of Hashem, what you're really perceiving is his humility. His humility, because what's his humility? That even though he's so great, he contracted his will and his wisdom into 613 commandments and all of their laws and the combinations of letters of the Torah, Nevi'im, Kesuvim, and all the teachings about them in the Midrashim and the instructions of the sages, and so a blessed memory. So you see, it's all there in the Torah, and yet the Torah is only one book with 5 parts. But we have the whole Talmud and all the writings and the prophets and everything. It's all rooted in the Torah. So similarly, the whole Chassidus is here. This is the soul, the inner life of all the Maimorim. And a lot of things that we're reading here, you've learned Basi Lagani. Oh, I learned that. Yeah, sure, that's in Basi Lagani. I learned that. And you think Basi Lagani is the last mimer that Frierdiker Rebbe said, so it contains everything, his whole life's awareness and work is contained in this ultimate mimer. And we learn the same things here in the Tanya. He's just explaining it for his time, for his generation, which is for all future generations. Okay, let's continue. Another few lines. I thought we'd go further today, but we're not. So Hashem, Eov says, Hashem, you created tzaddikim, and we're saying here that not that he creates a tzaddik so a person doesn't have free will. No, a person always has free will, always is responsible for what he does. And when it says he created tzaddikim, it means he created people who could be tzaddikim, but you have to work at it. If a tzaddik doesn't work at it, there was a great tzaddik, Rabbi Yechon Kohen Gadol. He was Kohen Gadol. To be Kohen Gadol, the high priest once a year on Yom Kippur went into the Holy of Holies. They put a chain on his leg because if he had improper thoughts and he didn't think, if he thought about his mortgage or he thought about the latest sale of Florsheim shoes, that we got a brochure came to the house yesterday, Florsheim shoes. If he thinks about that in the Holy of Holies, he doesn't come out alive. So they'd put a chain on his leg to drag him out because no one else could go in. He was the only one allowed. And he went in for 80 years. And he came out. And in the end, he became an apostate. You know what an apostate is? Someone who denies the authority of the Torah.
Is that an English word or a Hebrew word?
It's an English word. It's a Greek, it has a Greek root, apostate, like apostle.
How is it possible that he went against?
What?
80 years?
Can't, you have to speak much louder.
How is it possible that he went against the Torah if he was there for 80 years? Didn't he see all the truth?
And then it just shows that a person always has free will.
Right, but how can you explain that logically? Like, how is it possible for somebody to?
How is it possible? The Yetzer Hara is he's a cunning hunter. He's a cunning hunter. And for 80 years, he had no power whatsoever over Rabbi Yechanan. And after 80 years, he found a chink in the wall and he knocked down the wall.
80 years inside the Kodesh Kodashim?
He went for 80 years, for a few minutes every year, when he went in to do the Avodah on Yom Kippur.
There for 80 years.
And he did it for 80 years. And in the end, he could, and it even says that some of these stories that I've told you about Rabbi Elazar ben Dordaya, a person who did every sin in the book, he made all the worst people today look tame. And then one day, he chapped a moment of tshuva. He went to the base of Mikdash, he sat down, he put his head between his knees, and he started to weep and do such a tremendously powerful tshuva until the soul went out. Soul went out. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi said, this is a person, fortunate is a person who can acquire his whole world to come in 1 minute. That's how powerful tshuva is. He elevated retroactively all the negative things that he did. And there are a number of stories like this about unusual people in our history. Avner with the Ramban, and the mathematician with the Alter Rebbe, who go through the same cycle, I don't know the word for it, of behavior. And the Alter Rebbe said they're all reincarnations of the same neshama, and they have such a powerful tshuva, and they go through so many mistakes, which they elevate all these mistakes retroactively through their tshuva, because they are reincarnations of Rabbi Yechanan, who made the biggest mistake of all, and each time is fixing another aspect of his neshama. So that's what Iyar says. You created tzaddikim, people with the potential to be tzaddikim, but the tzaddik has to, I mean, you see the Rebbe, I have to say the Rebbe was born a tzaddik. When the Rebbetzin Chana, his mother, was expecting, she was receiving many telegrams from the Rebbe at the time, who was the Rebbe Rashab, about how she should behave and what she should be doing and what she should be learning, and not to tell anybody. And when the child is born, nobody's allowed to know about it, and nobody's allowed to perceive his beauty or his genius, right? And the Rebbe writes, when I was 3 years old, he says, the Rebbe says, when he was in his 50s, he says, since the age of 3, I was dreaming of what it's going to be like when Moshiach comes. The Rebbe was already on this level when he's 3 years old. And the Rebbe Rashab knew that this was a special neshama was coming into the world. And similarly with the Baal Shem Tov, he knew when the Alter Rebbe was being born. And he was born on his birthday. Not his own birthday, he was born on the Baal Shem Tov's birthday. And that year, the Hasidim noted that the Baal Shem Tov was a tremendous ecstasy in Elul, because something great was happening. They didn't know what. And during Tishrei, and then finally, towards the end of Tishrei, he announced to his Hasidim that a new neshama has just come into the world, who's going to light up the way for all future generations until the coming of Mashiach. That was the Alter Rebbe. So they know. So we see that a tzaddik can be born a tzaddik, but after that, he still has to work. He has to become more of a tzaddik. And that's what it says in Tikkun Zoyar. It says in the Zoyar that there are many, many grades and degrees of neshamas. We have Hasidim, we have Giborim. What's a Gibor? A person who overcomes his Yetzer. We have Mari Torah, people who excel in learning Torah. Not everybody excels in learning Torah, but they could be tzaddikim. We have Nevi'im, prophets. Then we have regular tzaddikim, and we have maybe regular tzaddikim refers to people who are masters of good deeds. So we have masters of Torah and masters of good deeds, and we have prophets, all kinds of different neshamas. Hashem made all these neshamas and gave them the capacity to be what they could. But they have to meditate on what they should and what they could, and then they have to work on it. Have a great Shabbos, everybody. High stuff here. Okay, Mushka, Sharonelle, where is Samantha today? Rachel, what happened to Rachel? Tova, Sarah Mora, Sarah Abigail, Chaim Menashe, Hannah, Karen. No, she's not here. Ariel, no. Malka Lavana, Liba. Thank you very much, girls. Thank you, thank you. Anybody I didn't call?
Did you call me?
Who said that? Chava. Oh, I don't think I did. Chava Krimko. There we go. Candle lighting today is at 7:30. 2, I think, 7:32, 7:35.